Hey everyone, welcome to the first virtual action hour that we're having this year. I want to start off by thanking you all for being here. So my name is Laura Webb and I work at the North Carolina Justice Center. The North Carolina Justice Center is a statewide nonprofit that is located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're working to end poverty in North Carolina. I work on our Fair Chance Criminal Justice Project, which is a project that looks at the way the criminal justice system makes and keeps people poor. And then we work with lawmakers, directly impacted people, and community members like yourself to make changes to statewide and local policies and practices. Our hope is to make the criminal justice system more fair from arrest to reentry, but we have a really large emphasis on reentry and second chances. So as many of you know, the 2025 General Assembly session has started. So right now, lawmakers are considering bills in an effort to change statewide laws. And there is a number of bills that we are working on with some of our partners to expand opportunities for people who have come in contact with the criminal legal system. Ending the felony SNAP ban or the drug-related ban on people's access to food and cash assistance is one of the policies that we have been working on for a number of years. And we're hoping to get to the place where North Carolina no longer bans people from food access or cash access simply because of their past drug conviction. So right now, as you hear, there are 3 bills that if one passes this year will make a huge change to statewide law to allow more people access to food and cash assistance. And so we're hoping to get one through. Right now, we are working towards a deadline called crossover deadline. And that is the deadline by which a bill has to cross out of its original chamber. So whether it started in the House or Senate into its partner chamber by a certain date in order to live or survive. And that's called surviving crossover deadline. That deadline for us this year is May 8th. So we have to get at least one of the 3 bills that we're going to talk about across crossover deadline before May 8th. And so this week, as many of you know, the General Assembly is on spring break. So folks are not in the physical building right now, which is why we're having this event, because we have to keep pushing, right? We have to keep pushing. We have to keep contacting our lawmakers. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity to contact them virtually, while they're sitting at home through email, phone, and social media. So with that, just kind of giving you the purpose of the event and what we're hoping to do, I'm going to pass it to one of our deep partners in the work, Brent Bailey, to talk about the felony SNAP ban. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Laura. I am Brent Bailey. I'm the coordinator for the local reentry council in Buncombe County in Asheville, North Carolina. And I don't know how much some of you all know about local reentry councils, but one thing we do is we're assisting individuals as they're returning back to the community from incarceration. And so there are a few of these councils across the state. Even in communities that might not have an established council, they probably have someone, some agency, somebody that is working with individuals who are returning home from incarceration. And so typically people are coming out and their needs fall into kind of 4 categories: housing, employment, transportation, and then kind of educational and vocational goals. But one of the first things many people do is they apply for food assistance. And it's really deflating when you see someone come out, and even though this has been a law for 30 years, when somebody comes out and then they're going to apply for that food assistance and then they're denied because of that previous drug felony, you can sometimes just kind of see that inspiration they have, all of that energy they have just kind of leave in that moment. And so we also of the mind that we're trying to improve public safety by reducing recidivism. And if somebody is already coming out with levels of anxiety around different things, We don't need to increase that when it comes to food insecurity. Like if we can alleviate these anxieties in any way we can, it behooves us to do that. And one way is to help people be able to feed themselves. And so there are a lot of different implications. For example, I've been in this particular position for 10 years. I've been doing reentry for over 15 years. And through that time, I've seen the impact of this on women continue to increase. And so I think a lot of times when we're talking about this specific issue, I always like to highlight how this is affecting women and children. And as you go on through this presentation and get education, you will learn more about how that's impacting them. But when someone's coming out of incarceration back to the community, we don't need them to be honestly worried about like what they're going to eat tonight. Also, when people come out, they start working, you go back to work, like you're still paying taxes at the same rate as everybody else. So now you're supporting a program that you are legally excluded from if you need that assistance. And so we've been fighting this good fight for quite a while now, really feeling like each year we gain a little more momentum and hoping this is the year that we can get across the finish line. And so that's where we're kind of counting on some of you all. I like to incorporate this just into my everyday conversation. For example, I just left a meeting before this one, and I was telling them where I had to go and what I had to do because I'm always talking about it. And everybody there, many of them didn't even know that this was a law, this was something going on, and they all supported lifting this ban. So no matter what past criminal conviction, like you coming home from incarceration, you should be able to participate in SNAP benefits. And so I want to thank you for your time and appreciate you. And I'm gonna pass it to Keisha now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Keisha Millette. I'm a staff attorney with our Fair Chance Project at the North Carolina Justice Center. And I'm just going to walk you through the issue that we're focusing on today, which is the felony drug SNAP ban. So I'll share a brief presentation and then have time for maybe a couple of questions. Okay, thank you. So, just curious by a show of hands, who is familiar with this issue already? You can either use an emoji or raise your hand. Just curious kind of about folks' knowledge in the room. Okay, great. So we have some folks who know about it, more folks who could learn more. So first, just kind of want to ground you in the kind of what we're talking about today, which is SNAP or food stamps. So SNAP is a program that's offered through the federal government, and it provides financial assistance for folks to pay for food. It was first set up to address public health concerns around food insecurity and poor nutrition. And I think those of you who are on the call may agree with me that actually access to safe and healthy food is a human right. And so we know that people need access to programs such as SNAP and also need access to food in their day to day. So right now we know that SNAP is really important and it's something that should be in folks' everyday conversation. One, because there are threats on access to SNAP at the federal level, and because there are many of our community members, neighbors, friends, family members, maybe even some of us who deal with barriers today to having access to SNAP. And we're focused on SNAP, but there are all kinds of public benefits that could be folks may have limited access to. So I want to talk a little bit about the war on drugs and how these two connect. So I feel like more folks on the call may have heard of the war on drugs. Just curious, show of hands, emoji. Okay, right. So we're calling the war on drugs a failed policy. And we know that the policy was very likely designed to do exactly what it did, which was contribute to mass incarceration and create a number of folks who continued from kind of the early 90s, but beginning long before then until now, who continue to be criminalized and incarcerated related to drugs, even as we have seen different efforts for legalization around the country. So it's something that started very early when Nixon had his campaign and went into the White House and created the Drug Enforcement Administration, and then continued with enforcement of on the streets of folks who were in possession of crack cocaine, and certainly more severe than folks who had powder cocaine. And many folks who are on the call will probably know that that meant that we were seeing a more targeted focus on Black communities in particular. And we'll just say that the incarceration rate expanded, multiplied, like even from 1980 to 97, went from 50,000 to over 400,000. And we still continue to see folks incarcerated and criminalized related to low level drug. So then we get to this ban on food assistance. And as I mentioned, there are kind of different reasons that folks may face barriers to accessing food assistance. But one of them in particular, through 1996, around the same time as the bill that kind of one of them in particular in 1996, this bill, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, decided that if somebody had a drug-related felony conviction, then they would not be able to access food assistance or cash assistance. And the way that they set this up was that a state could follow this policy, or they could opt out. And so North Carolina was one of the states that opted in, and then pretty quickly afterwards created a modified ban on access to food assistance. And so what our modified ban looks like today is that if somebody has a Class H and an I felony, which those are the two lower level felonies, then they get at least a 6-month ban on access to food assistance even after the time of completing their sentence. If somebody has a Class G or higher felony conviction that is drug related, then they see a lifetime ban. And so this continues today, these echoes of this war on drugs that determines that if somebody has had a conviction related to drugs, then they should not be able to access food. And I think folks on this call know that's not right. So here are just some of the harms, which can't speak to everything. But we know that a ban on food assistance means that there are more public health problems. Folks are not getting the nutrition that they need. They experience psychological stress. They're not able to support themselves or their households. How are we expecting our communities to be safe when people don't have food in their mouths to be able to do what they need to do day to day? We also know that when people do access food assistance, then we can see things like a reduction in recidivism. And there's one study that showed that someone's access to SNAP and TANF benefits actually reduces their risk of being incarcerated by up to 10% within 1 year. We've also seen research that shows that it reduces the risk of overdose and improves opportunities for employment, which shouldn't have to have studies to show this, but it's definitely clear. So, as I mentioned, there's a disproportionate impact on Black folks and Black communities being 4 times more likely to be arrested for drug possession than white people, despite having similar usage of drugs. Also seeing that people of color make up to 60% of those serving time for drugs in prisons, and prosecutors twice as likely to pursue a mandatory minimum sentence. So this is just a way that we're also seeing that folks are increasingly facing barriers to have their basic rights, basic needs met. There are other ways that we see challenges here, such as Black folks being 6 times as likely to be incarcerated and have higher rates of arrest. So this is a quote that speaks to one of the challenges that someone has faced, which to describe essentially when somebody is denied access to SNAP and TANF benefits through this law that we have in our state, it impacts not only them, but the other members of their household. This person describes essentially where there is an amount of money that that person takes home every year and is without the ban, that amount would be considered as a three-person household with that amount, we'll say $20,000 a year. However, with the ban, that person does not count as a member of the household. And so it's seeing a two-person household with $20,000 a year, which in some cases can reduce dramatically the amount of money that the household can receive, and in other cases can mean that that household doesn't qualify at all. So that impacts children and other members of the household. As you can see with this map, our state is lagging behind. These green states are all states that have completely opted out of the ban, and North Carolina, one of the mustard yellow states that is still opted in. Have been connected with a coalition of folks, including Brent and others, kind of over some years, who have been really beating the drum around this issue and trying to make sure that people are aware that it's important to continue to fight against hunger, make sure folks have access to food, and continue criminal legal reform efforts, including with eliminating the SNAP felony ban. This session, we have seen lawmakers in both the House and the Senate spot partisan bills to end the SNAP ban. And so that's something that we're really excited about. One of these is the House Bill 733, Everyone Eats Act. So this bill was filed this session. We see that folks who have a felony drug conviction would be immediately eligible for SNAP and TANF benefits after their conviction date, and it would restore SNAP and TANF access for thousands of North Carolinians. We know that there are at least tens of thousands of people who could benefit from this. Other two bills that we see are Senate Bill 564 and House Bill 682, Public Safety Through Food Access Act. And so these are also bipartisan bills that were filed. And some highlights are that they would make sure that people are immediately eligible for SNAP and TANF benefits after their conviction date or upon release from incarceration. However, the person must successfully complete a drug treatment program to begin. We recognize that these particular bills are based on their sponsorship and positioning, the ones that are more likely to move. And so we continue to advocate for folks to have unrestricted access without having to complete the drug treatment program, but are also very excited that there is an opportunity for folks to not face the barrier that they have in the past, which is that 6-month ban or the lifetime ban. I do want to note that for anyone who is living in our state that has an out-of-state drug-related felony conviction, that person also gets a lifetime ban automatically, regardless of the level. So I guess want to pause and see if we have any questions before we take a moment to take action. You're welcome to put questions in the chat, and we will probably have some time to answer questions when we take action as well. Okay, well, thank you all so much. Just want to say that we are very excited about being able to have this action hour with you and keep you up to date on what's happening at our state legislature. Oh, and I'll answer this question. So, state of South Carolina, unfortunately, is red because they have fully opted into the ban. So, as we understand it, and I think others may have more insights, they have not modified their ban on SNAP benefits. So, SNAP and TANF. So, somebody who has a drug-related felony conviction right now in South Carolina cannot access those benefits. Okay, thank you. I will turn it over to Laura.
Keisha, there's another question in the
Sure.
chat.
Okay, before I get to that, so someone asked, who in North Carolina would you suggest speaking with, and do you have talking points? Okay, this is a great question. So actually, that's what we're going to get into on this call. So right now, and I actually will do another screen share in a moment. But right now, all three of these bills are sitting in the legislature, and they have started either in the House or the Senate. And so, as Laura mentioned, in order for these bills to continue to go forward and have a chance of becoming law, that means they have to make their way all the way through the House or the Senate and get into the other chamber. And so what we're trying to do to take action today is both reach out to sponsors of those bills to make sure that we thank them for getting these bills filed, and also want to reach out to core committee members where the bills are currently sitting. So I can take us to the website and give you a chance to find out who is your lawmaker, actually your personal representative we can contact to make sure that they are aware, or if your representative is one of the sponsors, then to thank them for sponsoring the bill. And so just give me one moment to do that. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so folks may have seen this website before. This is the North Carolina General Assembly website, www.nc.gov. And this is a website that you can visit to keep up to date on what's happening at our state legislature. On the left, you'll see news and information, and on the right, you'll see information about when the House and Senate are meeting, as well as when they have their various committee meetings. Here you can see where you look up bill information. You can also look up members. Right now, what I would like to do is show you a way that you can find out who your representatives are, but this means both your senators and your representatives for the state through the website. So one way I like to do this is visit the website and scroll all the way down to the bottom. And then I click on this Find Your Legislators. You can look by address if you would like, but you can, or district, but you can also just search them by county. And so I live in Durham County, so I will pull up my lawmakers for Durham. Okay, and so you can see the lawmakers and the districts that they cover in the House and the Senate. And so for me, that's 6 different people, but I also know based on my address that my representatives are Sophia Chitlick and Senator Sophia Chitlick and Representative Zach Hawkins. So this is a way that you can look it up. We'll go to Representative Hawkins, for example. And here I can find his email, his legislative assistant's email, and his office phone number. And that is the way that you can contact your lawmaker.